So you are going to now, just as a precursory, pull it out and look at it before you trim and grade. Granted, your curves aren't going to look great, but I want you to check a couple of things. I want you to check, are your collar tips the same length? If they're not, when you line them up, if one is offset, you need to unpick one side and pull that collar out or push it in so that it comes out of the collar band and your actual collar tips are the same length. Then kind of compare those curves against each other. Do we come out and line up the same? Are we going to be symmetrical with those two fronts? If it looks good, then we are ready to trim and grade. And if you look at your directions on your guide sheet, it's going to tell you your next step is to trim and grade. So we're going to go do some trimming and grading. So I'm ready to trim and grade. The collar band itself is trimmed to 3/8 of an inch. You should be able to just trim right along the basting line for your interfacing, and that should leave 3/8 of an inch. As you come around that collar band. As soon as you get around the curve, you'll remember that your collar is inserted in there. So you're going to trim just the collar band itself to 3/8 of an inch. I'll trim partway across here so you can see everything that's going to happen. And that would continue around all the way. Then you will come back and you will trim your interfacing to 1/8 of an inch. And again, the easiest way to do that, pull the interfacing away from everything else. If you will just lay your scissors kind of tipped on their side there and lay them right against the stitching line, it will trim your interfacing to that 1/8 of an inch. And so you will trim that all the way around to the 1/8 of an inch. So the collar band's trimmed, the collar band interfacing is trimmed, the collar that was sandwiched in between needs to be 5/16 or just a 1/16 of an inch narrower than the collar band was. And so you'll come back and you will trim your collar itself just that little tiny bit narrower. Basically, you will cut that seam right in half. And so you can look and see that it's just slightly smaller than the collar itself was. And then the collar band facing is going to get trimmed down to 1/4 of an inch. So I'll clip into there and come around so you can see. And by trimming each layer to a different length, it is reducing the bulk gradually so there's not a little ledge when it's through. And so as you look at that, you can see there's my collar band, slightly smaller. The collar itself is a little bit longer and the collar band facing a little bit longer. They just get progressively a teeny tiny bit longer than each other. And you will continue that process, the trimming and the grading, along the entire length of that collar band. Okay? Then when that is done, you will come back now. This is a curve. We want that curve to lay smooth, and the only way to do that is to reduce the bulk. And so you'll come back with pinking shears and pink the edge of the collar band facing end of the collar band. Pink them separately so that those little triangle cuts don't necessarily hit the seam allowance exactly in the right place, so that you don't have a weak spot in your seam that then tends to want to stop sign a little bit or get sharp points on it. Okay, so you'll have both of those pinks separate from each other, and you can look at them and see they don't quite line up. They are off just a little bit. That's exactly what you're after. So I'm going to finish trimming and grading this, and then we'll get back together again.